Hi everyone and welcome to Module 2. First of all, I want to go back to Module 1 and say that you have done really good work and I really enjoyed the reading of all the work that you've published in Module 1. Actually, I'm really impressed. It shows that many of you have a lot of experience in the IB and you have given many good examples. If I go back, many good examples about how you can use an foster international mindedness in class, and in all the activities you have given ideas about how we can implement it in class, and that was really interesting. You have had really interesting questions throughout. I have answered some of them, and for the others sometimes there are many answers possible, so I encourage you to go back and try to give your own answer to your colleagues. But it was really nice to go back to that. What you have noticed perhaps is that we start the workshop by focusing about developing their IB learner profile, which leads the students to be and also to sensitize them to international mindedness. And the profile plus international mindedness allows them to act and to try to change the world, to be and that would go with the IB mission statement. The other thing that you have done in Module 1 is to go back to the standards and practices that defines how we should teach no matter where we are on the planet when we are teaching the IB program. And also you have seen the IB educational system, which reminds you of the values on which it is based. So that meant inquiry-based learning teaching, that meant having concepts, global context that we will use to assess, to give feedback to your students, to differentiate, and also to collaborate for the students. And also you have the priority to develop the approaches to learning, and of course the IB learner profile. All of that together is the IB educational system, so that was important to try to remind us of what it is at first before we go on and plan our own units, because we have to keep this in mind. If we only focus on the mathematics, then we might just skip everything else. So now in Module 2, of course, we can access the module notes. You'll see that it will guide you. There are resources. Once again, you'll see that there's an activity that explores the concepts and context, global context, but there is no learning engagement activity associated with it, which is the second one, because everything will be published in the third one. So it's like if learning engagement 2 and 3 were blended. So, of course, I encourage you to go and see these resources. Once you've done that, in each activity I give details about what I expect. So the first learning engagement activity is to try to find a resource. We suggest the Global Oneness site, but there are many other sites which can be used. You give the link of a relevant resource, but you try to think about the context within which you want to work in the next few weeks. It would be much more useful to try to find a resource that we will use than any other resource. Once you have selected the resource, just give the link and try to consider 3 possible global issues that you might consider with these resources. So once again, you click on my post, and then you can reply to my post. And thanks for everyone. If ever there are links like this which are not that you cannot press, it's just because when you click on the reply, I remind you just have to click on the advanced button, and then you'll be able to insert a link that we will be able to click afterward. So let's go to the third learning engagement activity. You'll see that we have to choose concepts, which will enable us to build a conceptual understanding. We have to choose a global context exploration, which comes from the mathematics guide. And then we combine the concepts and the global context explorations together to build a statement of inquiry. And we can improve our statement of inquiry considering the guidelines given in the evaluating MYP unit plans. So I'd see all of that with you. Let's go to my post, and then you'll see that I have given resources. Of course, the global contexts are in the MYP from principles into practice. The concepts are here. These are only screenshots, but they are also in the mathematics guide. This is the document on top, which is the evaluating MYP unit plan. Basically, to improve. Normally we try to follow the guidelines to do something, and then we go back and try to improve. Sometimes we do it later on, but you will have to know that the resource exists. And I also give you right away the MYP unit planner from the IB, but I have changed it a bit to put in some color basically. So if you want to use mine, which is basically the IB one with a little bit of color and a few more details perhaps, there is a blank version here. When you click on it, you access a Google Doc. What you have to do if you want to use it is only to download a copy, and then you can put it either on a Google Drive or OneDrive or whatever other drive. So this is the same thing as the IB gives, with a little bit more details here in the content. But basically it's the same thing. But it is the new version. If you would select something, even on the my IB site, they don't give exactly the same resources that we are now been giving for 2 years in the workshops. So this is something that you can use. I also have a version with the direct links to go and find mathematics concepts. So if you click on it, it brings you directly to the screenshots. So the idea is to go fast. The global context, you click on it and it goes directly to the pages from the MYP, from principles into practice guide, and then you can select global context exploration. What you have to know is that it is the right column. So the global context is here, let's say globalization and sustainability, but the explorations is what is on the right. You don't have to use all of it. You can combine things. For instance, I could combine consumption and commercialization. I could combine data-driven decision-making with human impact on the environment, markets, and something else, let's say resources, natural resources. So I could combine these within a global context, or I can use it as it is, let's say population and demography. Okay, so this is your choice. Once again, you can download a copy of that. I have done that in order to help you. I just want to remind you that when you will go to my forum, when you reply, you can just do it like this, like state all of your answers on top of one another, so I can read it, comment it, and it's going to be easier than always going back to and downloading your unit plan. But if at the same time that you are like publishing things, all along you build your unit, then at the end it's going to be it's going to take less time, because at the end you will have to fill in the unit with all of the parts that we will have done. So I have downloaded a copy, which is here. I've just given a small example, which I've done really fast. Actually, this is not the first try that I've taken for the video. So the last time I just selected a few concepts on the global context exploration and build statements of inquiry. So what I've decided, let's say, was to study how consumption can have human impact on the environment. So I combine these two global context exploration, which comes from globalization and sustainability. And then I have selected concepts. I have selected representation, quantity as related concepts, and relationships. The idea being, and I'm combining, it's like key concept plus related concept plus global context exploration. I do not have to state the global context, only the global context exploration. And that could give, for instance, representing relationships, the relationship between entities, which are all of my concepts, allows to evaluate the human impact of consumption on the environment. So one way to evaluate the impact is to represent it, let's say by graphs. So this would be, let's say, the main idea of my unit. And then I would have, as a statement of inquiry, I would take out all of the global context exploration. I would only keep the related concepts. And I could say, well, I have relationship, quantity, and representation. I could only say, like, relationships between quantities can be represented. And that should be done in M1P1, and it can be done in M1P5. It could be done with an exponential function, and it could be done with a quadratic function and with any other relationship. So this is something that can be used on many topics and in many years. So that's why it is conceptual. It's something that the students will be able to use and reuse again. And also they could use that in science. They could use that in economics. So that's the idea of the conceptual understanding. And if we change the global context exploration, then we can build from the same conceptual understanding, we could build many statements of inquiries. So that's the idea. So you can start that. You don't have to attach it to your post. You can try to start doing that. You see that I have erased like the gray box, because you can erase the line at the end, because even if I will give you like links to help you build your unit plan faster, then when you want to give it to the IB, you erase all of it, of course. So that was the idea. Hope, and I'll comment on that. You'll see as soon as I can. Then there are two smaller, let's say, learning engagement activity. One of them is to see the learning outcomes for service, and also to think, just to think, well, doing what I do with the context that I have chosen in the activity learning engagement 3. Let's say it would be the human impact on the environment of consumption. Then I could perhaps think about 3 opportunities for service as action. Perhaps I could sensitize the students in school to what the consumption does to the environment, and I could put posters, let's say, or I could do a video, I could do a conference, I could do whatever else. I could go outside, put banners, whatever I would do to try to change things. And there are 4 types of action, so I just stated it here. Either, and sometimes it's direct service and direct advocacy and research, and all of these types of action can be used in order to consider it for service in the IB. So you just try to think about, and I often have many very marvelous ideas that these participants have. Just think about your global context exploration and think about what they can do, and you'll see international mindedness coming back here. And the student will do that. You'll see that there are links also with the learner profile. So once you've selected your opportunities for action, then just associate it with what learning outcomes it could be used within that activity. So let's say something that they do with others in groups, then we could choose work collaboratively with others. From MYP1 to 5, they will have to use all these within their service as action activities. I'll then go to the last learning engagement activity. I'm getting there. So the 5th one. So it just basically it's pretty easy. You just have to choose one other subject group that could work with you within your unit and tell me why. That's it. Okay, it's really short. So let's say that I have chosen the human impact on the environment. I could say that I have chosen to work with science because we could see, let's say, the impacts on the water, on nature, on the animals, or whatever else. So I could use this knowledge from science in order to enhance my understanding. So I wish you the best of the weeks, and I also have 2 meeting options that you will see on